Profilers got to know this special breed of criminal by spending time with them behind bars. They learned from the monsters themselves. John Douglas, along with other agents, studied closed cases.
To understand the artist, you must look at the artwork.
Then they went into the nation's prisons to interview the serial killers and rapists who committed the crimes.
You start getting tremendous information back from these people that you can now apply to ongoing cases that'll be coming across your desk.
Gary Heidnik was convicted of killing 2 of several women he kept imprisoned in a pit in his basement.
They couldn't stand up in the hole, could they?
Douglas and Special Agent Judd Ray went to interview Heidnik on death row.
You were electrocuted as punishment.
Yeah.
And you did that systematically for some time.
No. Only several days.
When you know you got them, is when they begin to lock in on the interview and they begin to kind of space out. And now they may be talking to you, but now you have them back at the scene.
I went from the ear things, the spanking, you know, nothing was working. I was trying to find something that worked that would make them shut up to stop.
So you got a progressive kind of infliction of pain on these women.
Huh?
It's a sort of a progression of inflicted pain.
I was trying to find something that would make them behave.
But it was painful to them.
I hope so. I don't mean I hope so, but I mean, you know, that's what I was trying to achieve, you know, to make them behave.
All these cases are driven by fantasy. So they never can fulfill the fantasy, and so they keep trying.
You know, I'm sitting there, you know, trying to figure out what the hell to do, you know, what the to do, you know. I started chopping up the body.
With all these different offenders, there's a precipitating event or stressor that pushes them over. That I can't take anymore. This is it, and it's like the birth of the serial killer. You're trying to destroy the evidence.
Right.
See, some people.
The Buffalo Bill murderer in Silence of the Lambs was a composite of several killers, including Heidnik and America's most famous serial killer, Ted Bundy. Bill Hagmeyer was a rookie FBI profiler when he first began to interview Bundy.
As he came up, so you camped behind her, she heard him, she turned around, and he brandished the knife.
He would pretend to be a murderer, he would play it out in his mind, and if he's to be believed, one day in 1973, he picked up a hitchhiker and through some displaced aggression killed her, fully expected to be apprehended and convicted of it. When that was not forthcoming, the next time he was very angry and hostile. He chose another victim, and each time it was a little bit easier.
Sex is a weapon. The crime itself is a crime of anger and power, manipulation, domination, and control over the victim. They are inadequate, is the best word to describe them. So they're seeking this control, and they'll control the victim. They control the victim, which victim they're going to select. They'll control when this victim is going to die. That's the thrill for these people.
Serial predators often leave clues to their twisted personalities that give profilers a clearer picture of them.
There are certain things that certain types of personalities will employ which will assist them in garnering some type of satisfaction or specific gratification. These are not always necessary to the commission of the crime, but it's necessary for them to feel like they've achieved what their mission was. This is their signature. It certainly goes a long way in not only linking cases together, being able to predict just what the perpetrator may do next.
While in movies, profilers appear to have psychic links to the killers, they deny this mental magic in real life. But they do exhibit an uncanny connection to the men they hunt. Douglas once predicted to skeptical police officers that an unknown killer would have a speech impediment.
I can see this person, I can visualize who's responsible. When I get to the speech impediment, then it's, you know, it's the elbows and they're looking at each other. What is this crock of BS this guy is giving us here, you know? And the thing that they were just shocked about is when they charged him, indicted him, brought him into the court, he couldn't even pronounce his name. He couldn't even talk to the judge. His speech impediment was just so bad.
I am not the trail site killer.
They thought, this guy must be psychic. I mean, are you psychic? How are you able to do this stuff? And I said, no, I wish I was psychic. Maybe it would help me. Yeah, I got quite a reputation on that, and they made believers out of a few people.
His ability to step over the line to the dark side made Douglas invaluable. More and more police departments called for his special abilities.
Guys at work used to say, "John, you're like a male whore. You can't say no to your customers." And I couldn't. What can I can't say no. They're calling you up to help.
But success carries a price. His increasing fame led him to fear for himself and his family. Many profilers live in gated or secret communities and have unlisted numbers. Greg McCrary worked for Douglas and, like many profilers, found there is another burden that comes from knowing the enemy so intimately.
I say that my children are the vicarious victims of what I've done. With my daughter, for example, she says, well, I'm going to ride my bike to Stacy's house. And I said, well, the hell you are. I mean, there's all sorts of perverts out there. You're not riding your bike anyplace. What, are you crazy? And then I realized, no, I'm overreacting to this. So there's a tendency to begin to get a we they mentality, that it's just a bunch of killers and rapists and murderers out there, because that's all you see.
For at least one profiler, this dance with the damned would almost prove too much. He couldn't solve, and a killer he couldn't see. The stress exacted a cruel price. It happened on the Green River murders case. Women were dying in Seattle. Their killer left mostly skeletal remains, which told investigators nothing. The profilers didn't have enough information to draw up a portrait. Despite the best efforts of Douglas, the Green River killer was never found. Over time, there would be at least 40 victims. The case still haunts Douglas.
It really was never solved. Hopefully it will be solved one day, but the chances are slim to none. Particularly, there's so many victims. Someone, and I think more than one person, maybe as many as 3, got away with murder out in Seattle.
For Douglas, the Green River case would bring on a more personal crisis. Walking in the shoes of monsters and their victims was taking its toll.
The nature of the work, dealing in violence day in and day out, and then not being able to balance your life makes it extremely stressful and difficult to cope with. I was exercising, I've always exercised, but now I was exercising to the extreme, running, jogging, maybe I think really running from my problems and the stress. And then I was drinking to numb my senses. Plus, coming home from work at night, you know, what are you going to say? Let's gather around, kids. Daddy worked a great lust murder case. He's dying to tell you about this lust murder case. You can't do that. And so you hold it in.
Douglas sensed something bad was about to happen, but was committed to the Green River case.
I took out extra life insurance. The very following Monday, something was going to happen to me, I sensed. I get called to go out on the Green River. I say goodbye to the family. Wife is at work teaching. I go by her school and I say goodbye to her. Why are you telling me this? I just want you to know about this insurance. Why are you saying that to me? And you don't look well. Your eyes, you know. I said, well, I got a tremendous headache. I said, I have to go. They're depending on me. So off I go.
He flew out to Seattle.
I put a not disturb sign on the door of that hotel room. And that night I collapsed in my hotel room floor.
Rushed to the hospital in a delirium, Douglas thought he too had become a victim.
I began to sense tremendous pain in every body orifice, and I was thinking someone's trying to kill me.
It was a miracle he was alive. He had contracted encephalitis and was temporarily paralyzed on his left side. Bill Hagmeyer took up a collection so Douglas's wife could stay with him in Seattle. Douglas's experience is not unique.
I've never seen a prolonged, complex case where 1 or 2 people didn't go down one way or the other from nerves, health, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It happens. There's only so much of us to give.
It would take 5 months of rehabilitation before Douglas could return to his job at the FBI. Meanwhile, authorities working the Green River case received an unexpected offer of assistance from a man who thought he knew the killer well. He wasn't a profiler. He was serial killer Ted Bundy. Bundy, then on death row in Florida, had begun his own murderous career in the Pacific Northwest. Washington State investigator and profiler Robert Keppel went to see him.
It was kind of a dueling situation between Ted Bundy and the Green River Killer, because I think there was some sort of envy for the Green River Killer, mainly because he was able to go on much longer in Bundy's own backyard, and this intrigued Bundy.
Bundy never solved the case, but in a way, he did become a real-life Hannibal Lecter. Bundy shared details of his crimes with FBI profiler Bill Hagmaier.
He spent several years giving us his insights and those that he received secondhand from other criminals on death row who had killed probably collectively several hundred people. Basically, as he referred to it, took us under the water with him, and exactly what goes through his mind and the minds of other serial killers when they choose certain victims, when they leave their crime scenes in certain manners, and in him with particularity returned to each and every crime scene that he was able to.
Hagmaier knew Bundy had escaped police for years by crisscrossing the country, making it difficult to connect him to his crimes. The profiler was with him the night before his execution, when Bundy confessed to 3 murders that had never been tied to him before.
We'll never know the extent of Ted Bundy's murders. There's little doubt that he was telling the truth in killing at least 30, but he suggested that there may have been many more than that. He may well have killed over 100.
Many of Bundy's victims were pretty young co-eds he tricked into going with him. But the most common victims of serial killers are women who don't need to be conned to go with strangers. Solving their murders can be the profiler's ultimate challenge.
Offender. You give me any city where you have prostitution, where you have drug addicts, where you have throwaways, we call these children are gravitating to these bus terminals and leaving home. These are killing fields for the serial killers. These are easy pickings.
Like Douglas, profiler Greg McCrary would come to learn a lot about the men who make prostitution strips their hunting grounds. One winter, a case brought him to Rochester, New York. Prostitutes in Rochester were disappearing, and their bodies turning up in waterways outside the city. The Rochester police went to the FBI for help.
It had a large number of prostitute murders, much larger than normal. It had 16, which was a huge at variance. They knew something was up.
A distinct profile began to emerge from the series of homicides.
The similarity here, though, deals with the dumping the body in water, and that we're going to see time and again as we go through here.
Did he weight her down in the water?
No.
These areas are not the areas where they would go to, the prostitutes, where we're finding these victims, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
For the profilers, the most significant clue was that most of the bodies were dumped in the same area, the Genesee River Gorge.
We felt that this was an indication that he was very familiar with that area, probably for legitimate reasons. So part of the profile was that this guy was a fisherman, an outdoorsman. There's a controlled rage, a controlled anger in the crimes. There was a methodical nature to the killing and to the dumping of the bodies. So we felt that this really represented an older, more mature, more criminally experienced offender who probably had murdered before.
A local prostitute told police about a customer named Mitch who, during sex, asked her to play dead.
My response to that was, well, I can't say that's your killer, but that's a guy, the type of behavior we would expect him to exhibit, and I'd be interested in knowing who Mitch is, and let's find out more about Mitch.
In the meantime, McCrary developed a clear portrait of the killer.
The profile that we provided to the authorities was that the offender was a white male, about 30 years of age, that he had a criminal history for sexually violent crimes, probably homicide, probably sexual homicide.